I'm bored. Let's watch The Critical Drinker. Are we seriously still talking about MCU in 2025? Are we seriously still doing that? Here it's titled, The Fantastic Four, Return of the MCU. How is it a return to if you guys have been squawking that it's the MCU always? Was there ever a point where it wasn't the MCU for you guys? Because I don't remember any of you ever declaring that Marvel had left the MCU phase. It's almost as if that term doesn't mean anything really, and you just keep repeating it over and over and over again as part of your narrative. Anyway, let's hear what he has to say, because there's literally 2 women in the Fantastic Four movie. So how you make that the MCU, I don't know. The ratio is way off.
Oh dear, 2025 hasn't exactly been a bumper year for the MCU, with back-to-back flops in the shape of Brave New World and Thunderbolts. And
using flops very, very loosely. Very, very loosely. There's a bigger picture, and I'm going to prove here that he's not going to address the elephant in the room when talking about financially where films are in general right now. Let's continue.
Yes, with less than 400 million at the global box office and its theatrical run all but over, even the most die-hard shills have been forced to concede that Thunderbolts is absolutely a flop.
But it's not. Let's take a look here, okay? First I want to pull this up. According to Box Office Mojo, Thunderbolts box office sits at $369.5 million, doubling its budget. The new Avengers reportedly budget is $180 million. When it comes to Hollywood release films, that's a break-even point, which is 2.2x and 2.5x its budget. So it's not a flop. A flop would be it's not able to recoup its budget. That is what a financial flop is when it comes to films. Not making its budget back. Both of these movies made their budgets back. And if you want to talk about the greater impact on this, you can look here and see that this year in general, anything other than the top 2 movies right now have been lackluster in terms of like Hollywood blockbuster money. You could make an argument for like Sinners because it was a lower budget movie, but let's look at 3, 4, and 5. So 3, 4, and 5 all sit underneath the $500 million mark, and we are in June of this year. I also want to point out that most movies make their biggest money on average, typically during the summer season. It is literally the 3rd of June. The summer season is ramping up here. These movies like Captain America, Thunderbolts, Mission Impossible, making large amounts of money in today's theatrical climate prior to like a big Hollywood bust was always going to be an uphill battle for all of them, especially considering Mission Impossible 7 didn't really do that well. And the budget for that film is like 400 million plus. So even though you want to claim that Captain America and Thunderbolts were flops, which they're not financial flops, they made their budgets back, they underperformed, they didn't flop, they're still in the top 5 highest grossing films of 2025. But you're not going to mention that because you're disingenuous about everything. Let's continue.
And call me crazy here, but something tells me that Ironheart isn't going to turn
Ironheart's
things around
not a movie,
for them.
It doesn't matter.
You've bitten off
Doesn't
a hell of
matter.
a lot more than
Doesn't
you
have a
can
box
chew.
office
I could
number.
chew a lot.
That means that everything now rests on the Fantastic Four, the 3rd attempt in the past 20 years to make Marvel's first family work on the big screen. And I think it's fair to say things aren't exactly shaping up well for them. I mean, it started out well enough. The first trailer came out to a mostly decent reception that actually generated some positive buzz for a change. Imagine that in 2025. People were appreciating.
A lot of people love the Thunderbolts trailer too. You guys love to play this game where it's like, you act like people have the memory of a goldfish. Maybe your viewers do. Maybe the people that believe you and give you hand jobs and suck you off, maybe they have the memory of a goldfish. But the people over here, the high paid hookers, right? The ones that get the money up front, we know better. We know better than all this shit. The trailer for Thunderbolts, the one that came out that everybody was calling like an A24 trailer, people loved that trailer. And the fan reception and critic reception of that movie has been high. So whether or not the money was there, whether or not it made $1 billion is irrelevant if you're talking about the quality of the films that are coming out, which is what you're supposed to be doing. Out of everybody in your circle, you're supposed to be talking about the quality of films. But here you are trying to go after and hurt and diminish a movie before it comes out based on shit posting on the internet. People that don't have a lot of time on their hands getting online and trying to roast stuff. if you want people to take you seriously as a critic, and I know a lot of your fans are going to come in the comments and be like, he already is taken seriously. He's not. But if you want people to take you seriously as a critic, you need to stop feeding into the outrage culture war bullshit. Just go back to doing like straight up like movie reviews and stuff.
The comic accurate costumes, the charming retro-futuristic 1960s aesthetic, the emphasis on family and teamwork, and the prospect of a Galactus that was more than just a giant cosmic space farts. Great stuff, Marvel. After half a decade of...
But, spoiler alert, because there's a woman Silver Surfer, that's going to be the problem. I have a feeling he's going to talk about Shalla-Bal as Silver Surfer, come up and spin some sort of yarn about why that's a problem. And then he's going to complain about the marketing focusing on Sue Storm in some of the marketing. Even though she is probably the second most important character on the team in terms of where the team has been in comics over 50, 60 years. She actually led the team during the 80s. And there's been other iterations where she's led the team. She's arguably one of the most important members of the team and one of the most important characters in the Marvel landscape. Like if you look around at all the characters, iconic characters from over the years. But I'm pretty sure they're the only two women in the movie, but those are the two things he's going to complain about. But they're the only ones.
Generic, forgettable slop, the MCU finally seemed to be doing something with a unique look and feel again. They were fully embracing their comic book origins, goofy costumes and all, instead of trying to make everything look cool and slick and modern. Maybe, after a quarter of a century of failed attempts, someone might actually do justice to the Fantastic Four. But leave it to Marvel to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. The problem started out small at first, like the casting of Reed Richards, which turned out to be trickier than expected. Apparently, the studio approached at least 3 other actors.
Is that MCU? Is that the title of your video? Is the Fantastic Four Return of the MCU? So if you're going to inject other things, you need to retitle your video, because right now it seems like hyperbolic outrage gooning material. That's what it seems like.
To play Reed, and they all turned it down. But why would they do such a thing? Who in their right mind would turn their back on a leading role in a big budget Marvel movie with a huge paycheck at the end of it? Well, if I was a cynical man, I'd say it's because they wrote Reed to be a weak, cowardly pussy who gets bossed around by his far more powerful...
My dude, you have only seen trailers. You've only seen trailers. How the fuck are you going to talk about how they wrote Reed in this movie when you have only seen trailers? This is the kind of bullshit that makes you look like a fucking idiot. It makes you look like an idiot. You are feeding into the outrage machine instead of waiting until you see the film, which means that no matter what happens, like if you go and you see the movie now, you're going to look like an idiot to your viewers if you actually like the film. And you're going to have to backtrack on everything you said, which means that's not going to happen. Everything that he says here, keep this in mind, everything that he says here is most likely going to be what he's going to say after he reviews the film. Even if it's completely opposite of what the movie actually has in it.
An assertive wife for most of the movie, and the leading men of Hollywood are getting almost as tired of playing characters like that as we are of watching them. But then, like a knight in rainbow-coloured armour, a saviour arrived to take up the mantle. That's right, it was...
You know what's funny is these guys will complain that killing off Pedro's character in The Last of Us is what caused the rating decline. But then, in the other hand, connected to the same fucking body, they'll say that Pedro is the problem with the Fantastic Four movie. So, is he the problem or is he not the problem? Is he somebody that people like to tune in and watch? Like on The Last of Us? Or is he box office kryptonite and people are not going to go see it because of him? They can't even keep their narrative straight.
Pedro, I'll appear in literally anything Pascal, an actor that clearly saw the meme about him taking on far too many roles and said... More! But hey, who knows? Maybe Pedro would buck the career-long trend of taking on high-profile but inappropriate roles and deliver an absolutely killer performance as Reed Richards.
But you don't know because you haven't seen the movie, you fucking imbecile.
But then there was the casting of Vanessa Kirby as Sue Storm, who's 38 in real life and somehow manages to look even older on screen. But, you know, Pascal is like 50, so it would have been pretty weird to pair him up with some hot young 25-year-olds.
So your issue is that she looks older than she actually is. But then you're like, that's good because Pedro is older and it would be weird for him to be with a younger woman. Pick a fucking lane. Which is it? Does she look too old? Do you want her to look younger? I don't know which fucking thing you want based on that criticism. Vanessa Kirby is beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. And the fact that you're rejecting her tells me that it's not really about beauty or anything like that, or looking like the character from the comics. She looks like Sue Storm. It's not even about that. It's about fucking getting a paycheck for shitting on something. It's so fucking transparent and obvious.
Nothing to worry about so far, so let's keep going, shall we? Then Vanessa revealed in an interview with Entertainment Weekly back in April that this movie was going to explore the gender politics of Sue Storm.
In an article that you guys refused to read what she actually said. Let me reiterate what she was talking about in the article since you're not going to do it. She talked about the fact that she wanted to make sure that they got Sue Storm right because they didn't want to see her as like something that's walked over. So they were going to incorporate different eras and different genres of Sue over the years, all of the best parts of that character, to incorporate it into her performance in the film. That is what she said. And she used the term gender politics in a very long statement about how she wanted to put her best foot forward with this character. She was actually arguing in favor of making sure this character held on to and retained the fidelity of the character from the comic books. But you guys refuse to read her actual quote, and you use headlines made by John F. Trent, a fucking scumbag propagandist, because you know that no one is going to go and check you on that. None of your viewers are going to check you on that because they don't want to know the truth. They would rather you lie to them and keep them angry and upset in that outrage machine because you guys are fiending for it because it's not a lot out there. So you're fiending for it and you need this to get you through your day. You need that hit to get you through the day. So you're not going to read it. I can guarantee he's going to skip through this and never read what she actually said.
And women's place in 1960s culture.
See?
Fuck.
See?
Okay, sure.
Reading the headline, but not reading the quote. Y'all need to pay attention to this.
Sure. That kind of statement can mean a lot of different things. I mean, the film's set in the 1960s, which was a pretty important time for feminism.
It's not even on our Earth. Like, the MCU, which is supposed to be close to, like, our Earth or whatever, this is on a completely different Earth. We have no idea whether it's retro-futuristic. We don't even know if the history of that world is the same. But here you are dragging this in. She never fucking talked about this. She never mentioned this specifically. She was talking about the fidelity of the character and how she was going to be perceived by the public. But you're not reading that. You're jumping to this because you want to keep your fans engaged with outrage.
And women's lib and all that other stuff, so I guess it would make sense to at least acknowledge it. Maybe she just means the movie will present an interesting contrast between the kind of expectations and
but we haven't
questions that
seen it
women
yet.
in 1960s America were grappling with versus the modern day MCU, where they basically act like obnoxious caricatures of men if they were written by 16-year-old gender studies graduates from Portland. So, fine, we're still hanging in there, I guess. Nothing that's gonna spoil anyone's fun yet.
But wait!
So we're halfway through the video, and your title of this video is The Fantastic Four: Return of the MCU. You talked about Pedro Pascal, made it out to seem like he's super not important because he's in everything, but then you guys complained when he was killed off in The Last of Us Season 2. So we got that. Nothing MCU there. You mention her, you misrepresent a quote from her and talk about the history of the United States, even though she never mentioned anything like that in her quotes. So you lied about that, and you still didn't point out anything about a negative about her in terms of being the MCU. So I guess the next thing is the Silver Surfer. So this is the big one. I'm prepared. Let's go ahead and jump into it.
There's more!
Then there was the decision to make the
Here we
Silver
go.
Surfer, one of the most iconic antagonists in all of the Marvel comics, into a female. Because of course.
Oh, come on!
But Drinker, you clueless connoisseur of comic calamities, I hear you say. If you read the Earth X limited run comic from 1999, you'd know that.
And they've already said that this film is going to be pulling from that run. They've already said it's going to have elements of this in there. Because it takes place on another Earth. That's the thing. He doesn't know that, though. He's mentioning this because people in his comments mentioned it. He's mentioning this because he got roasted the fuck out like a pig, straight up pork roast, because he didn't know this. He got roasted. So now he's bringing it up to try and hold up his street cred.
that there's an alternate universe where Shalla-Bal becomes the Silver Surfer instead of Norrin Rads. Thank you, imaginary strawman that I...
Norrin Rads? Norrin Rads? Is there an S? Hold on for a second. Let's jump back. We got to jump back on that one. Did he put an S on Norrin Rad?
Animated run comic from 1999, you'd know that there's an alternate universe where Shalla-Bal becomes the Silver Surfer instead of Norrin Rads.
Norrin Rads. So you're trying to school a bunch of comic book fans on a niche run, a story from comics. Gotcha fans, but then you don't even know how to say the real name of a character that you seem to give a fuck about, one of the most iconic antagonists in all of Marvel Comics, the Silver Surfer, Norrin Rads. Are you fucking kidding me?
Thank you, imaginary strawman that I used to awkwardly transition into my next point. There was indeed a female Silver Surfer in a limited run series set in an alternate reality from 25 years ago, so I guess that technically makes this lore accurate.
Well, I mean, you guys keep asking for characters from 70 years ago. So you want them to focus on characters from 50, 60, 70 years ago, but a story from 25 years ago is too far removed for them to use in a film today.
Sure, let's just go with that. The point is, every time another one of these revelations comes out, it became just a little bit harder to ignore what seemed to be a growing pattern. Like, if Marvel were trying to refute allegations that the MCU was taking over everything that they did, they were making life pretty hard for themselves.
So the MCU is 2 women in a movie full of men. That's the MCU to him. They have 2 women in a movie with like 7 men. Okay.
But wait! There's...
And then, last week, we began to hear reports of a test screening for the latest cut of the movie, where major details of both the plot and the ending were leaked. A test screening that basically confirmed everyone's suspicion.
I want to pause it here, because I haven't seen any of these supposed leaks. He might say them here, so if you don't want to hear those, you might want to bow out and then come back. But a lot of the stuff that's come out, a lot of the rumors about that test screening have been debunked already. People that were actually there said that a lot of the stuff that people were saying happened didn't happen. And on top of that, test screenings don't really mean much. Test screenings are there for the studio to make adjustments if they want to at the last minute for like film and things like that. So the whole point of them is to take feedback and to possibly make changes. That's the whole point of test screenings. So when people are talking about test screenings not going well or whatever, the entire point is to fix issues or to see if the movie is good enough to just go out as it is. So that's not test screenings are not a metric of quality on the final product. We've actually seen test screenings hurt movies. Movies that could have been better, they got completely changed because of test screenings and then came out and they were still shit. So it doesn't mean anything.
Now, I'm sorry for what I'm about to show you.
So...
Look, I said I'm sorry, okay? If there was another way to do this, I absolutely would.
How do I want to phrase this? Even though it's a team of 1 woman and 3 guys, I think that you're going to have a situation at the end of the movie where it's women who save the day. And you're like, why? Can't Reed at least be involved? You know, you're like, come on, man. You know, like, come on.
Right.
Eloquently phrased as always.
I mean, what does that mean? What does that even mean? Does that mean that Invisible Woman teams up and convinces Silver Surfer to do something at the end of the movie? That she connects with her, possibly because she's pregnant, and she appeals to her because of that? I mean, there's a lot of different ways it could go. That doesn't tell us anything, man. Doesn't tell us anything. We still don't know. Because we haven't seen the fucking movie. Oh, you guys are insufferable.
Grace, good job. I mean, if even one of the biggest Marvel shills on the planet is calling out your movie for being too...
Grace is literally not a Marvel shill. She's like the opposite of a Marvel shill. Grace has baggage from Marvel. You don't even know what the fuck you're talking about. Grace has had an issue with Marvel for ages because of what they did to her. God, fuck. Like, you guys are so stupid. She's not a Marvel shill.
Girl bossy, you know you've got fucking problems. Anyway, the gist here is that the movie culminates with Sue Storm joining forces with the female Silver Surfer to defeat Galactus, with a little help from a superpowered baby, leaving the rest of the lads with, well, not a whole lot to do. Oh my goodness, it literally is the meme.
Girls get it done.
And all of this begs the rather obvious question. Why? Why do they keep doing this?
I don't know. Maybe we should watch the movie and find out. Maybe we should watch the film that you're so gooning out on hating to determine why that happens. Maybe we should collectively decide that judging a movie happens after you see the movie. Maybe that's, I don't know, maybe that's a weird thing for me to say in 2025, that maybe we should wait and see the thing before we judge it. Or like you, pretend to see something and then talk shit on it. I'm not even going to watch the rest of this video because it's just going to be more garbage and slop from him. And I feel like we've already covered all of that. The reality is that Critical Drinker and everybody else in this space lost their credibility ages ago when it comes to any kind of real criticism. The issue is he's putting out, this is the second video that I have seen where he's tried to go in on the Fantastic Four and talk trash about it. Because he is so worried, and everybody else in the circle that he hangs out with are so worried the movie is going to be a success, that they're doing everything they can to glaze everybody, to lube everybody up, and get them ready for that outrage goon fest that they want to have when the movie comes out. And it's not about quality, because Thunderbolts is a movie where most people agree it was a good film, regardless of what it did at the box office. And a lot of people have said that the reason why they think it did a little bit less at the box office than what people expected, I thought it would get 500, 600, so it did go under my own personal projection. But it's because they need to build up trust in the with Marvel again because of how things have been thrown around and delayed and changed and stuff like that. And I would say that's a fair assessment. That is an absolute fair assessment. But this is just garbage. This is just like, what are we doing, man? What is the point of this? What is the point of getting upset about something ahead of it coming out to the point where you're just making up reasons to be mad at it? Most of these complaints are things that you don't even know are true. And the other stuff is stuff that you don't even know how it works out, like how the end of the movie goes. As a film critic, as somebody who says you love movies, you claim you love movies, all you seem to do recently is talk shit about stuff proactively and then never actually cover the stuff out there that's been really, really solid. And if you do, you cover it or bury it somewhere else. Because for your viewers, there's far more money in this than there is in having integrity. And that's fucking crazy.